What was the weirdest date you've been on? I went on a date with a girl to a bar and grill. The girl just got set free from a bad relationship. The bartender was her uncle, the server was her sister, and her fresh ex-boyfriend was there on a date with another guy. Yeah, sounds like, my friend, you got invited to the family reunion. Story 2. I went on a date with this girl from Tinder. She super liked me and messaged me first, so I was really happy to have someone interested. I asked if she'd like to go for a walk sometime, and she said she'd love to. So we get to walking, and like 5 minutes in, she asked if I have roommates. I said yes, I live with 5 people, and tell her about a few of them. There's Max, Matt, Mark. Wait, Mark Smith? I know him. What's he been up to? So we start chatting about my roommate, and she knows a lot about him. His family, the sports he plays, his girlfriend. Every time I try to move the conversation somewhere else, she brings it back to Mark. She's not even pretending to be into me anymore. She's just fangirling out over my roommate. I just love him. His hair is always so shiny and he smells so nice. She spends the full 2 hours talking about him and asking all sorts of questions. I didn't really know what to do, so I just boredly kept answering. When we get back to our cars, she shifts gears again. Hey, so I had a really great time. Want to go back to your place to have some fun? She's really creeping me out at this point, so I tell her I have homework to do, and maybe later. I get back and tell Mark about the date, and he knows exactly who she is. He picks up the phone and immediately calls the police. They show up at the house, find the girl outside in the backyard, and arrest her for violating a restraining order or something. It turned out she was super unstable and had stalked my roommate since they went on one date almost a year prior. She recognized from photos she had of him and used me to find out where he lived. Yeah, that's just next level crazy. The worst part is because it just sounds like she had like a crush on him in the conversation. But that took like such a just dark turn. I really do feel bad for people that have these like kind of stalkers. It's got to be a very stressful thing. Story 3. I had a stalker pre-internet days. She used to show up at parties and the gym when I was there, and I have no idea how she knew my schedule. I had to take my phone off the phone bill because it was that bad. The day after I went back on the phone bill, I got a phone call. I went back on the phone bill because I got married and was so busy I didn't even think about it. Got to call a day too. After 9 years. Yeah, that's just insane. That means this woman has been trying to contact this guy at least once a week for 9 years. That is scary. Story 4. This girl from Tinder invited me over to cuddle. So I assumed that we were totally going to bang. I get there, she cooked a lovely dinner, and we just kind of held each other and talked about our traumas for a while. I told her about stuff I don't even really talk about with my closest friends. Then we moved to her bed and she fell asleep like fast. And we just sort of cuddled all night. We never even kissed, except those back of the neck ones that happen when you're spooning. I woke up, we cuddled a little bit more, and then I went to work. It was an awesome, super intimate experience. Pretty weird though. Yeah, I'm gonna need an update from this person, because from the sounds of it sounds like you might have found a soulmate. The fact there is no updates on this makes me very upset. Like, I refuse to believe they had this, and then they just never did anything ever again. I refuse to believe it. Story 5. Somewhat, but not really a similar story. I had one Tinder date invite me over to just hang out. Dip crap me, didn't get the message that meant to bang. Anyway, I brought Oreos, her request, and a treat for her dog, then left after we got to know each other a bit. We hung out that weekend, and she said she was surprised that I didn't make a move, and said it made her think I was a good guy. We got a few drinks at Rick and Morty bar crawl, went back to her place, and banged. Anyway, where this is going is, early in the morning, her dog took a massive crap on my jeans next to her bed. I wrote it off as her farting in her sleep when I smelt it during the night until I woke up the next day and had to wear her tiny gym shorts home. We did it for a few months. Pretty cool gal. Story 6. Dated a woman who didn't tell me she needed meds because she was psychotic. In the middle of dinner at a restaurant, she got quiet and distracted. I asked if she was feeling okay. Apparently, one of the voices told her I was a horrible person, and she pulled a steak knife on me. A customer was able to talk to her and got her to put the knife down. The police were called, and she was arrested. I didn't press charges, and about a week later, she sent me a letter with proof that she's been in counseling for a long time, takes medication, and included a heartfelt apology. It's really good that the situation was probably handled the best way it could be, but I would be so mad if I died on a date by a steak knife by a random girl. I'd probably haunt the restaurant for the rest of my life. You know, every time they order the chicken breast that I ordered, they get a little haunting from me. Story 7. Went on a Tinder date who made it clear she had mental health issues and PTSD from past trauma. We decided to meet for bubble tea. I get a seat and wait. She walks in with a large stuffed shark. Cool. Plushies are fine. They can be a good therapeutic tool. She gets her beverage, we sit down to drink, not even a hello was exchanged, and we dive right into how she was assaulted in art. I was in the healthcare field, I can listen. The thing is though, she was talking very loudly, uncomfortable levels of loudness about tough issues. I could not redirect her or change the topic, nothing. She wasn't having any of that. So, I panicked and said, "You want to go to my car and make out?" Her eyes light up and she loosens the grip on her stuffed shark. Okay. We get back to her car. We kiss very awkward. It was mostly teeth, and the shark was kind of, between us. I mentioned how I'm kink friendly to her previously. She hit me with a weird question, this awkward teethy kissing. Can we do some art play? I kind of panicked again. You sure? I mean, maybe. We can walk to a park, I stammered. We get out of the car, we walk towards the park. The entire time she's talking about her trauma. All that jazz. Just awkward. We get to a fairly private place. She softly says, maybe we shouldn't do this. Yeah, sounds good to me. I ended up playing with the chicken while she watched me. I took an Uber home, texted her that I had a good time. She ghosted me 100%. Story 8. Third date with a guy from Hinge. Started off completely normal. Went to a pub for a few drinks. Pub closes. Guy invites me back to his. We get back to his and have a few more drinks. He then asks if I'd like to smoke a joint. I hadn't smoked for a few years, but thought, hey, it'll be fine. I end up feeling very sick and unable to move. The guy doesn't have a bucket or bowl, so brings over the entire kitchen bin and places it next to me. He then suggests we watch a movie. Guy puts on American Psycho, and I sit there for the next 2 hours, paralyzed and paranoid, completely convinced he's going to murder me. Also, he lived on a boat. Yeah, that guy was watching 2 of my Sigma compilations. If his go-to is American Psycho, he's definitely on the Sigma Psycho compilation binge. It's also the worst movie to watch when you're paranoid from being high. Story 9. It's hard to say I was catfished, because the actual girl was there, but so was her boyfriend, and her friend thought I would be a better match with. What made it more odd, she had sent private pictures. These were full-face private pictures, not Photoshop face-swapped. I could see the chest tat on her in person, no mistaking that. Wait, if I'm reading that right, did she really just send face-swapped private pictures? Oh god. Story 10. My first dating app date. Starts off pretty good. We barely put in our dinner order and her phone starts blowing up. Her ex was drunk and causing a scene outside her apartment. Her ex kept calling, then her roommate started, and then the landlord calls, threatening to call the police. We get our food to go, and I take her back to their apartment. Long story short, both her and her ex are crying messes. She goes inside, leaves me outside with a crying drunk ex who starts yelling at me all about how he messed their relationship. Dude is way too drunk to drive. I end up driving him to his apartment. Uber back to my car. Realized my date took all the food with her. The joys of dating. Yeah, this man just became like a therapist. This guy went in, single, ready to mingle, and then came out as a professional, certified therapist. Story 11. So I was 18, in the Air Force and living in the dorms. My roommate set me up with his girlfriend's cousin, and the 4 of us went to a movie. She brought a stuffed animal. Not a tiny little thing some young women clipped to their keychain. It was a gigantic blue rabbit, at least as big as a toddler. She said she brought it because she sometimes gets scared in movies. By the way, we were seeing a comedy. After the movie, we grabbed some ice cream and drove the cousins home. My date invited me to kiss her at the door, but told me I should also kiss Pebbles so he wouldn't be jealous. Story 12. I told a girl I was into granola environment crap. She replied, me too. We hit it off quickly. Anyway, she kept talking about how incredible her job was and that she taught a bunch of kids about environmental issues and how amazing this job was. Basically begging me to come check it out. So we picked a day and I took the day off from work. It had been a while since we saw each other, so she decided it would be fun to send me a real kinky text about fun places we could sneak off to around her work, as it was her fantasy. I was down, and I was getting in the mood myself. I drive her to work, only to find out she works at a trash-burning power plant and recycling center, and on that day, we'll be giving a tour to a bunch of preschoolers. Throughout the date, basically every chance she could, she would try to get me all roused up when no one was looking. There were about 20 kids and teachers right there. Meanwhile, we're walking through piles of rotten trash or looking at machinery that could kill you in an instant if you stepped over a boundary line, or staring into a white-hot furnace to see the burning trash. Therefore, the more you walked around, the dirtier you felt, which in a way was not surprising. I still had the worst blue balls of my life, which in itself was questionable. Anyway, the tour ended. She took me to her office, and well, let's just say it took 3 showers and a wave to a priest to feel clean after that. Story 13. I matched with a Chinese exchange student on Tinder. She asked me to meet at her apartment. Then we go link up with some of her friends at the wavefront. We're texting as I'm on the way over, and she says she didn't realize this was a date. Nonetheless, she asked me to pick up dinner for both of us on the way over. I get to her apartment, and before I can even take my jacket off, she says, "So, do you have anything to say to me?" Presumably because I'd spent 15 seconds in silence. I offer her the food she asked for. She says she wasn't hungry. I try to strike up a conversation, but she dead ends every topic I bring up. She starts texting and making phone calls. She was speaking Mandarin, presumably, but I was able to make it the name of the place we were supposed to meet her friends. She said something about how plans might change because her friends need help. Throughout all of this, I just sat by myself, eating my sandwich in silence. When I finished, I asked if she wanted me to leave. She said yes, then gave me $20 for dinner. Yeah, it's gotta be the strangest date ever. My guess is she probably had like plans with friends come up and she's like, yeah, I won't go on this date anymore. Or maybe she just wasn't feeling like the guy physically, like his appearance or whatever. Sometimes pictures can be misleading and a person might just look better in pictures. But I will say she did handle it probably the best way by giving him $20 for the food. Story 14. I went on a date with a guy. He invited me over to his apartment. Little did I know that it was a basement apartment, so the air was awful. It was under reconstruction and no daylight. I felt weird, so I sent my location to a few of my friends, just in case he wanted to kill me. It went well. He didn't kill me. We fooled around and left. Story 15. I was interested in this girl, and she kind of tricked me into a double date where she was dating another guy and had me fixed up with her sister. Being a good sport, I went along with it, and it was awkward, but okay-ish. But then she set me up with her sister again, and this time it was just the two of us. We went to the park. She had filled the trunk of her car with troll dolls. I mean, dozens and dozens of them. And spent the entire date introducing me to her trolls one by one. I should mention, we were in our 20s. She was getting frustrated and angry because I didn't seem all that interested in her dolls. So sitting there, hands full of troll dolls, she asked me, "So are we going to have the sex? Do you even know how to have it?" Not with you, I don't, I said, and got up and walked home. There's only so much one can endure while being polite. Story 16. I've had a few bad ones, but the weirdest / worst happened a few years back. I met this girl online. We started talking, arranged a date. It was around Halloween, so all of her pictures had her costumes and wigs. At what I'm assuming were Halloween parties? I was excited to get to see what she really looked like. Day of the date, she happened to be picking up her new car and asked if she could pick me up. Weird, but no biggie. She picks me up and says, "Mind if we grab coffee and drive around for an hour so I can get used to my car?" Weird, again, but whatever. So now we're driving around for a good 2 hours and the conversation is wearing thin. I knew she had work that day. We haven't really talked about it yet, if you can believe it. And I said something like, "So, how's work been lately for you?" And she said, "It's slow this time of year. Sometimes I want to pull my hair out." Like an effing idiot, I decide to respond with, "Well, don't do that." Nothing attractive about a blonde girl, to which she replies, "This is probably a good time to tell you. I have cancer. I'm actually wearing a wig right now." And suddenly it all clicked. The pictures with all wigs made sense. I didn't know what to do. You can't put your foot any further down your throat than I did. I knew I had to say something. So I said, "I feel really embarrassed about what I just said. Maybe I should just go." Keeping in mind I'm in her car and have nowhere to go. To which she pulled the car over and had me get out. Literally 30 minutes from my house. I had to call my mom to come get me. I was 32 years old at the time. So that sucked. It wasn't as bad as the girl who got diarrhea on our first date. Yeah, how do you even come back from that situation? Like, honestly, at that point, I feel like the guy should just walk to shame. I think I gotta, do some, spiritual journey after that to just kind of get that embarrassment out. I have to, put my headphones in, take that walk. It's probably gonna take me a few hours, even if it's nighttime. But I need to go through a spiritual awakening to kind of get that cringe and awkwardness out of my soul. And then there was the diarrhea story. I was dating this girl for about 6 months when we went to a big film party sponsored by some vodka company. My date got effing hammered, unattractively hammered. So we're driving home and I look over and she hikes up her skirt and starts peeing over my seat. Soaked to the thing. You wouldn't think a girl, a human, could expel that much liquid. But here we were. We pull into her house and she opens her door and runs inside. I had to run around and close her door because it was a 2-door Sunfire and those doors were like wings. It took me a few seconds to head inside. By the time I get back to running around to the front of her house, I know she's standing outside hunched over a small garden. I'm assuming she's throwing up, so I go over to check on her, but she puts her hands up and says, "Stop, I'm cramping." And I look down and there's diarrhea over her feet. She literally exploded. I didn't know what to do, but half man, I had to do something. This was one of those, how the F did this become my issue to fix situations? Here's where the things gets interesting. I ended up calling her sister. The girl took literally 10 minutes to come to the door, but when she did, she had 2 kettles of near boiling water. The girl I was with ran inside and her sister came out, handed me a kettle, and started pouring it all over the crap. basically the same. I was floored to learn this wasn't her first time doing this. So then I go inside to find my girl. She made it as far as upstairs bathroom, where I found her naked, laying on her side, throwing up, crapping, and a tampon string hanging from her amongst all of it. I learned a great deal about how capable a woman's bowels truly are on that evening. Finally, once she was cleaned up and ready for bed, like 2 hours later, I left, got into my car, and realized my passenger seat was still soaked with pee. I guess you could say it was a pretty good night. I'm so confused. So if that's not her first time, is she just like the serial crapper? Why is that her body's go-to instinct? I've been to many parties, and I've hung out with many people, but I've never seen anyone that's like, oh, I'm gonna crap myself now, I'm too drunk. I mean, it's happened, but not on that many occasions. Usually if it happens to someone, it's a one and done. Story 17. We met at Applebee's, and she brought a friend with her, which was odd because this was a first date. Then she invited me to her place for more drinks. She lived in a single wide trailer that was in the backyard of her parents' place, which was also a single wide. She went to her room and shut the door, and I was left there by myself. In the morning, I left, and her dad was shirtless watching me leave, and yelling at some dogs that I think were trying to attack me. Story 18. Oh god, I've been on a few, but the one that really takes the cake is the time that a guy stole my keys. I was young and dumb. I started talking to this guy on a dating site. We agreed to meet up at a bar that was about a 5-minute walk from my house. First of all, the guy's late. Like over 30 minutes late, which almost makes me back out, but he keeps texting me updates as he's almost there. I give him the benefit of the doubt since he is driving a long distance to get here. Once he finally arrives, over an hour late, I immediately realize that I'm not as attracted to him as I thought I would be. Nothing I can put my finger on, there just isn't any chemistry between us. From the vibe he gave off, it seemed like the feeling was mutual. We still got along pretty well though, and he did drive all the way to see me, so I figured we could hang out for a bit before he went back home. The bar we went to didn't have anyone in there besides us, and after an hour or so, the bartender decides to close early. Since I live such a short distance away, I invite the guy over to my place to smoke a bowl and chit-chat before he heads home. We stop at his truck to get something out of it before we walk to my place. We get to my place and smoke a bowl, watch a few YouTube videos, have a fun conversation. Then out of left field, because he had showed zero attraction to me all night and vice versa, he puts his arm around me and goes in for a kiss. I do an awkward shrug out from under his arm and say no thanks. We both sit in silence for a moment until I change the subject and resume watching a video. A few minutes later, he tries it again. I do the shrug again to get away from him. This time, his response is to do this big, exaggerated, cartoonish yawn stretch and announce that he's going to take a nap on my floor for a bit before he drives all the way back home. He then proceeds to lay down, close his eyes, and not respond when I talk to him. If this had happened now, there's no way I would do what I did then. Actually, if it was now, I wouldn't have done most of the things that led up to this. Remember, young and dumb. I turn off the lights and leave him in my room to go hang out with my roommate in the kitchen. A few minutes later, I get a text from this guy that made my stomach drop. It said, "Sorry, took your keys. I'm going to leave them in the center console of your car." Now, I lived in a granny unit unattached from the main house that sat in the backyard. It was for this reason that I did not see him slip out my room. I run back out and the lights are off and the dude is gone. Sure enough, so are my keys. I go out and check the center console. No keys. I call and text this guy over and over to no response. I don't know what he's trying to pull, but I know where his truck is parked, so I run down to it. The truck is still there, but he's nowhere in sight. He still doesn't answer my calls, so I started pacing around his truck. My logic being that he's not going to get away with stealing my keys. At this point, I'm completely freaked out, think he's lured me out of my house, and he's probably robbing me blind. I don't dare leave the truck though, in case he tries to make a getaway. After about 45 minutes of pacing, calling him over and over, his phone starts going straight to voicemail, and he still hasn't appeared. Again, the truck is about a 5-minute walk from my place, so where he has been all this time is a mystery. Eventually, a police car drives by. They circle the block and pull in. Curious why I'm pacing around an abandoned parking lot at midnight, I tell the cops the whole story. The weird date, the disappearance, the keys, the center console, everything. The cops are just as weirded out as I am. I asked them if they wouldn't mind going to check the center console again for the keys because I don't want to leave the truck while he still has them. They oblige and come back a few minutes later to tell me that my keys are in fact in my car. I asked them if they wouldn't mind giving me a ride home because I'm kind of terrified of this guy now. They kindly let me hop in the back seat. Once I got home and got my keys out of the car, I gave them a statement and description and they said they'd be on the lookout for the dude. I go to my room and nothing is out of place. Nothing is missing or disturbed. I drove by where his truck was parked the next morning and it was gone. He deleted his dating profile and blocked me on Facebook. To this day, there's so much I'd like to know about that night. Why did he take my keys in the first place? If he was planning on robbing me, why did he tip me off that he took them? Why didn't he steal anything if this was his intention? Most of all, where was he hiding all that time? I'll probably never find out. He did send me a creepy message on Facebook years later with an apology, and tried to explain that the reason he left was because he misunderstood something I said. But his excuse was weak and didn't add up, and he refused to answer when I asked why he took my keys and where he was hiding. Then he blocked me again. Needless to say, I was incredibly foolish and also incredibly lucky that nothing worse happened. I used online dating here and there again afterward, but was always more careful about my interactions. Yeah, for anyone watching that's in the dating scene, always be wary. I mean, even if someone seems normal, trust me, sometimes the more normal types of people are going to be the weirdest ones.